Imagine a vast ocean of dry grass, where the wind sings an endless song of death and survival. For 12 centuries, human history was ground into dust by the hooves of Mongol horses. But before he became the shaker of the earth, before his name became a synonym for divine wrath, he was simply a boy named Temujin. At his birth, his tiny fist was clenched around a clot of dried blood, a dark omen that the shamans interpreted with chilling clarity. This child would rule a world stained in crimson. Yet, in that moment, no one could have guessed that this orphan, an outcast of his own tribe, would forge an empire that would make the glory of Rome and Alexander the Great fade into shadow. His path did not begin with a triumph, but with a betrayal. When Temujin's father was poisoned, his own people abandoned him. They left his mother and brothers to starve on the frozen steppe. In the world of the Mongols, solitude was a death sentence. They ate roots and rodents, sleeping on the bare earth under the eternal blue sky. It was here, in the cold void of the wilderness, that an iron will was born. Temujin learned a simple, brutal truth. On the steppe, it is not the strongest who survives, but the most loyal. He began to gather those the world had discarded, outcasts and warriors without a clan, building a family not of blood, but of steel. But how do you turn scattered bands of nomads who had spent centuries butchering each other over grazing lands into a single unified fist? Temujin did what no leader before him dared. He abolished the right of blood. He didn't care about the nobility of your birth. If you were brave and loyal, you became a general. If you betrayed him, death awaited, no matter how long your lineage. By 1206, the steppe fell silent. At a great assembly near the source of the Omen River, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. His gaze now turned south, toward the unimaginable wealth of China lying behind the Great Wall. For centuries, the Chinese emperors had looked upon the nomads as wild dogs to be toyed with and set against one another. They failed to realize the dogs had become a wolf pack led by a genius. The Great Wall, that ultimate symbol of security, proved useless. The Mongols simply rode around it or bribed the guards. When they reached the walls of Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing, the world saw the true scale of the Mongol terror. The city didn't fall to swords, but to starvation and engineering. Genghis Khan was a master of adaptation. He captured Chinese engineers and forced them to build siege engines the nomads had never even imagined. The barbarians were now launching boulders and fire over the walls of the world's most advanced civilization. Yet the true power of Genghis Khan was not just in his catapults. It was in his mastery of psychology. He turned fear into his most effective weapon. Cities were given a choice: surrender and pay tribute, or be erased from the face of the earth. Those who resisted disappeared, literally. The Mongols would slaughter every living thing, down to the cats and dogs, and leave pyramids of skulls where thriving metropolises once stood. News of these horrors raced ahead of his cavalry, causing kings to tremble before they ever saw a single Mongol scout on the horizon. Why did the great Khan turn his eyes to the west? Initially, he wanted only trade. But the ruler of the Khwarezmian Empire made a fatal mistake. He executed Mongol ambassadors and plundered their caravan. This was a death warrant for all of Central Asia. The response from Genghis Khan was cold, methodical, and absolute. His tumens, units of 10,000 horsemen, moved with impossible speed, crossing mountains and deserts deemed impassable. Samarkand, Bukhara, Urgench, the jewels of the Silk Road, were reduced to ash. It is said that after the Mongols left Khwarezm, not even the shadow of a human remained. How was this possible? The secret lay in the Mongol horse and the Mongol bow. Every warrior traveled with a string of 5 or 6 horses, allowing the army to cover 100 miles a day, a speed unmatched by any military force until the invention of the tank. Their bows, crafted from horn, wood, and sinew, could pierce knightly armor from hundreds of paces away. The Mongol cavalry was not a chaotic horde. It was a precision machine, commanded by flag signals and whistling arrows, moving in total silence until the moment of the kill. But Genghis Khan was not merely a destroyer. Behind the trail of blood followed a surprising, sophisticated order. He created the Yasa, a code of laws that applied to everyone, from the lowest slave to the highest general. Under his rule, the Pax Mongolica was born. Legend says a young woman carrying a gold nugget on her head could walk from the Yellow Sea to the Black Sea without fearing for her honor or her property. He established the world's first effective postal system, the Yam, where riders changed horses at relay stations, carrying news across a continent faster than ever before in history. He was a man of religious tolerance in an age of fanatical hate. In his capital, Karakoram, mosques, Christian churches, and Buddhist pagodas stood side by side. Genghis Khan understood a vital truth. To rule the world, you must let people believe what they wish, as long as they pay their taxes and obey the law. He exempted doctors, teachers, and priests from taxes. His inner circle was filled with the brightest minds from every conquered nation. He was like a sponge, soaking up the technology, medicine, and culture of every civilization he crushed. But even demigods have an ending. In 1227, during a campaign against the Tangut kingdom, Genghis Khan felt his end approaching. The cause of his death remains a mystery shrouded in myth. A fall from a horse, a sudden illness, or even a hidden wound from a captive princess. His final commands were as cold and calculated as his life. He demanded his death be kept a secret until the enemy was fully defeated. He wanted to ensure his work was finished before he left the world. The funeral of Genghis Khan became the final great enigma. His body was carried back to his homeland, to the sacred Burkhan Khaldun Mountains. To ensure his resting place would never be desecrated, every person encountered by the funeral procession was slaughtered. Thousands of horses were driven over the grave to flatten the earth, and some legends say a river was diverted to flow over the site. The 2,000 slaves who built the tomb were executed by the soldiers, who were then executed in turn. To this day, no one knows where the greatest conqueror in history lies. The legacy of Genghis Khan is not found in maps or borders. It is etched into our very DNA. Modern genetic studies suggest that 1 in every 200 men on Earth is a direct descendant of the Khan. He bridged the East and the West, carving the routes that Marco Polo would later follow. He brought gunpowder and paper to Europe, forever changing the trajectory of Western civilization. He shattered old empires so that new nations, from Russia to Iran, could rise from the ashes. Many see him only as a monster, an architect of genocide responsible for the deaths of nearly 40 million people, 10% of the world's population at the time. Others see him as a visionary statesman who brought order out of chaos and initiated the first era of globalization. But regardless of the lens through which you view him, one fact remains. The world we live in today was forged in the fire of his campaigns. The steppe wind still blows across the Mongolian plains, burying the ruins of his cities, but the echo of his horses' hooves resonates in every history book. Genghis Khan did not just conquer the world, he broke it and put it back together in his own image. As the sun sets over the great steppe, the spirit of Temujin remains, a reminder of how the will of a single man, born in poverty and exile, can change the destiny of humanity forever. The wheel of history turned, and it never returned to its original place. His empire collapsed, his cities turned to dust, but the name Genghis Khan still commands the world's attention, evoking a mixture of terror and awe at the sheer, terrifying power of the human spirit.